Welcome to Deep Roots Wellness Podcast. Today I'm sharing something that is so close to my heart. My friend Kirby and I sat down and talked about our deconstruction journeys. The conversation was so rich, so honest, and so full of depth that I decided to split it into two parts. So before we begin, I want to say this. We deeply respect the choices, beliefs, and religions of others. What you'll hear in these episodes are simply our personal stories and experiences. So in part one, you'll hear the beginning of our journeys, where our faith started, how the cracks began to show, and the moments that led us to ask the hard questions. So don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss part two. And if this episode resonates with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Your support helps us reach and encourage more people walking this same path. Welcome back to Deep Roots Wellness Podcast. Today, I am joined again by my dear friend, Kirby O'Connell. So in this episode, we are going to open up about something deeply personal, our deconstruction stories. So we are just going to jump right in. Kirby, thank you so much for joining me again. I'm really, really excited about this conversation.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be back and hanging out with you.
Yes, thank you. So what did your faith upbringing look like?
Well, so I don't remember, I have early memories of going to church, but just kind of like sporadic. But it wasn't until I think my mom got remarried when I was around 6. And then my stepdad would take my sister and my stepsisters and I to like an evangelical, local Christian church. And it was, it was in the 90s and there was like a stage and lights and a band and it was weird. And like when we first started going, we're like, this is uncomfortable. And people were like doing this and it just kind of creeped us all out. But, I think I had always felt very connected to, God, as a kid. Like I remember finding a dead bee and like putting on a funeral for it with my friends. And like, there was something I just felt, I just felt really connected to the other side. And so I was really fascinated by Christianity, because I think I just had that thirst of like, I want to know more. Like, what is this? But yeah, so then, but then on the other hand, my extended family on both sides is Catholic. And so I, also felt kind of left out because the Catholic faith is like the high church of it all is so beautiful.
It is beautiful. Yes.
And I loved the like ritual part of all of that, but I also felt like, an outsider.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was kind of confusing because my dad grew up Catholic, but he didn't want us to be Catholic at all. Like a lot of Catholics.
Yeah.
But my mom kind of found Christianity in college. She started going to like Campus Crusade for Christ. She kind of like instilled that in my sister and I.
So was it more of an obligation or did you enjoy learning things as you went to church when you were young?
I think at first it was an obligation. And then I remember I became really good friends with a girl who was the daughter of a pastor. And so I started going to Awana with her. Do you know what Awana is?
We have Awana here.
Okay, yeah. I always remember her sister would always sing, Awana, Awana, I want to quit, Awana. Which I was like, why? But why does she want to quit it? So that, I remember learning so much.
Yeah.
I think I remember learning, that God loved me, about Christ dying on the cross, about sin. Like that was the first time oh my gosh, I totally forgot about all of this. That I really was like kind of hooked by it. Because I was just so like, oh, there are answers to these questions.
Right.
I didn't know there was answers to these, it just seems so very like concrete.
Yes.
And I was like, this seems really nice.
It did.
Yeah,
when we were young, didn't it?
It did.
So I had a pretty normal, I say normal upbringing when it came to my faith and church. Baptist, raised Baptist. And I did not have any like significant bad events or anything growing up. I was part of the youth group. I sang in it was Living Sacrifice was the name of the group. And we went to different churches, different states and sang for people. And that was very normal. Like, and that's all I knew at the time. So I just knew that as the truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because
I never
think,
questioned anything.
Right. As a kid, that's your whole, you only know what you know. And so it's like, oh, everyone does this. Everyone's like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I do remember being scared of going to hell, terrified.
Yes.
And being an empath, being a sensitive child, did not think that I could ever do anything right. And it's not necessarily that anyone was just telling me that I couldn't do things right. It's just the indoctrination, the dogma, the sermons that we heard. That's what they were about. And even though that was normal, it was terrifying.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember like, learning, well, first of all, I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional family. And so there was a lot of shame rolling around anyways. And then
I did have a lot of that in my family dynamic too.
Yeah.
So I haven't shared that yet, but I very much had that.
Yeah. So then I think when you go to church and you hear it like preached from the pulpit,
it confirms everything.
Yeah. You're like, oh, okay. And then you're told God is like this.
Yes.
It's like, oh, he's loving, but also he'll send you to hell for eternity.
Nobody loves you as much as God loves you. But if you make the wrong choice.
Yeah. Never ending suffering
Absolutely.
in hell for an eternity.
That's free will.
But I'm 6.
No. Can I really be that bad?
I've only been alive for 6 years. Like,
how did I mess up that badly? I know.
Yeah,
yes.
but it's so scary. I mean, it's effective. Like, it did what it was supposed to do. I remember.
Yeah, absolutely did.
I was at a friend's house, and I think we were in middle school, and she told me, this is, it's puberty, so everybody's starting to talk about sex and all that kind of stuff. And she told me that if you have sex before marriage, you go to hell. You go straight to hell.
Oh, yeah.
And
I heard that many times.
That scared the crap out of me.
Yes.
I mean, all the way until I got married. Like, it scared me. I mean, like, I think I learned, as I got older that, like, it's a little more nuanced. But yeah, it definitely, I think, like, I was a virgin until I got married. And I think, it instilled the fear of God in me. Like, I just was like, and also it told me, like, I got the message loud and clear from Christianity that you need to be small, agreeable, and virginal to be of value.
Yes.
And attractive and, like, pleasing. And I did that so well. I did it so hard and well that it completely destroyed my soul almost, not completely, but nearly.
Your self-worth. You did not have much self-worth, did you? Neither did I.
Right, yeah.
I didn't even know what it was.
Funny how that works. Funny how well that works, you know?
Just
Just like keep getting smaller.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just make sure that everyone else around you is happy.
Yeah.
And that you don't step out of line and you do what's asked of you.
And, like, I mean, talk about hell.
Yeah.
Like,
that is actually
that
hell.
is hell. Like,
Yeah.
I think
It is hell.
for me, like, I've, gotten to the place where I'm like, I think the only place that hell really exists is between your ears on this planet.
I completely agree.
And
Yes.
isn't it ironic that you can be in hell, but believe in Jesus and go to church? And,
I know.
Yeah.
But how many people really are in hell and don't realize it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know. I mean, I was at one point.
Me too. Yeah.
And the abuse that we go through, other people are going through, and they think that it's normal.
Yeah. Yeah, all that shame. I mean, like, I loved when Brene Brown came on the scene and started talking about shame. I was like, that's been the tool. Like, that's been the main tool.
Okay, so is it Hawkins' chart?
Oh, David Hawkins?
Yes, the emotional chart of consciousness.
Yeah.
The bottom emotions are fear, shame, and guilt.
Yeah.
And that is where religion keeps us.
Oh, man.
And then
you're so right.
God is love, which is the top one, and then authenticity is above that. But I would just say, like, the top. Okay, so that is as far as we can get from God, period.
Yeah.
And it keeps us here. So and that is how we are controlled of course.
Yeah.
And have you ever seen people with addictions? I always have had questions about this, and now I understand it enough to understand what's going on. But people with addictions, they start going to church, they find Jesus, all this stuff, and they become sober and they get their life right. But many, many times, more than not, they go back because religion keeps us in a state of fear, shame, guilt, and we're on that hamster wheel and we're not growing. And so if someone is being constantly beat down and in a state of shame, they're going to get triggered and go back to the addiction. That's why, because we're not actually raising, because everything is vibration, energy, and frequency, right?
Yeah.
And we're not growing and raising our vibrational frequency in that state. And so that's why people go back to addictions.
I think like it's interesting because I've seen that happen before too. And being in a 12-step group, like it's interesting the way you just said that, because in my head I'm like, oh yeah, in 12-step groups there's no hierarchy. There's nobody is in charge. Not one person is in charge.
Right.
It's a, it's a we, okay?
That's right.
And so like there's no head of the organization at all whatsoever. And I think the reason is because it's like so many of us come in with like fear of authority or so much shame that it's like that, and because you learn it, like you learn it in life, you learn it through, the system, schools, church, whatever, organizations, like work, you learn that there's a higher and a lower, and you know where you stand in that, and especially if you're dealing with addiction, you're probably down here, but that needs to go away for you. I think something that we learn in the 12-step groups is that like, you need to be right sized, which means nobody's better or worse than anybody else. We're all equal.
Yes.
And I think that's something that I don't know if the church does super well.
Well, it's designed to keep us in shame and fear and
it's so ironic, I mean,
could it be that that's why it was designed?
Yeah. Well, the more I learn about, like, I remember learning about the Council of Nicaea. Is that it? Yeah. Where they basically cherry picked which books they wanted to go into the Bible. And I was like, wait, a Roman emperor was cherry picking the books that need to go in the Bible. No wonder there's nothing about women. And then I was reading this book, and I don't know if it was Richard Rohr that said it. I forget. But it was basically that you've probably heard this, that the word, like when in John it says like the word was with God and the word was God, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think the Greek translation for the word was Sophia, and it's a feminine term.
Exactly.
And I was like, hold up.
Yes.
Where's that been? And then I read this book called Dance of the Dissident Daughter, and it was written by the woman who, have you read it? Okay, it's written by the woman she's written several books and movies, but it's basically her whole journey going from being like a pillar in her church and even like a really well-known Christian writer to deconstructing her faith and like and she like researches everything, and and so she finds all this stuff out along the way, and she talks about how in the Gnostic books that were like left out, that they talk about a mother and father God.
Yes, they do. There's that's that feminine and feminine and masculine energy.
Yeah.
Because it takes both, and we are supposed to be balanced. So yes.
Well, and I even think about like if we were made in the image of God, right? We're made male and female, and every single animal is male and female. I mean, maybe not every single animal. There's probably some asexual animals out there, whatever. But like male and female, and so it's like, where's all of that balance? Like, why is it so heavily dominated by the masculine? Oh wait, I think I know.
Could they have been the ones to create all this?
Yeah. Well, and it's like, you even think about like Christ, like called out the Pharisees first and foremost.
Yes.
And so do we think it's going to be any different than today?
No.
Why would it be any different now? Like, I mean, I was married to a pastor, And I'm going to tell you, like, I mean, just because you're a pastor doesn't mean you love God. It doesn't mean you know God. And it doesn't mean you have a heart for people. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that you're a pastor. That's it.
Yeah, I have found this, and in my opinion, that many people, pastors, other church members, it's like they create their own version of God. And it's actually a mirror of their self-image, actually. There's a lot of narcissistic qualities.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that anybody is. I'm not a doctor. I don't diagnose. But I'm just saying there are a lot of qualities. A lot are like very self-absorbed, only can see it from their lens, and so the love and the compassion is lacking.
So I remember reading that we become the God we worship. And when I first went into recovery, I was still very religious, and I found out they had their own book, and I was like, what kind of like sacrilege is this, right? And then they told me to have like my own concept of God, and I was like, wait a second. But I have seen that, like, when I first came in, I was in utter fear. I was in total fear because I believed in a God that was judgmental and ruthless, even though he was also loving somehow, but it was very confusing, and I didn't know how to handle that. So like I just erred on the safe side of like, he's probably judgmental, so let's just go with that just in case, right? And then as I've, healed, been on my healing journey, like my God is loving and like, and just infinitely loving and like, and just the kindest, like most compassionate, energy that I think probably, like ever existed, right?
Yes.
That exists, right? Like we were saying, like God is like up here, shame is down here. And yeah, so like, I think like, and not even just that, but also I think like I always said, like, I don't want to hear, like, no offense, like I'm sure there's really good white men out there. There are good white men out there. So it's not all of them, but by and large, I don't really want to know what you have to say because you've probably had it the easiest.
Yes.
Like, I remember being like, I want to hear what like a Black, lesbian, like Jewish woman has to say.
Yes.
Like, get her up there and I want to hear some wisdom coming out of that. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like, we're hearing from the top of the food chain where they haven't had as much resistance.
Again, I think that's by design.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, that is who created a lot of this.
Yeah.
So when did you start doubting, or when did you start seeing like cracks in the foundation?
Not being welcoming of people who are gay, right? I had a huge issue with that because, I was an actor and I was in theater. And so I had a lot of friends who were gay, and I was just like, or even people of other religions, I'm like, I grew up with people who, like, I remember these kids from my high school, like, they were Laotian and, like, their parents were from there. And I think they were Buddhist. And, like, you know what I mean? Like, why should they go to hell? They were perfectly wonderful people.
Yeah.
But they have to go to hell forever because they didn't grow up where there was Christianity. And I just kind of was like, that sounds
It
like
just didn't
BS.
sit well, did
Yeah.
it? No.
And then, we're told, well, God is more loving than you, so you don't understand. And so it's just like, gaslight yourself.
Yeah.
Or like, we're going to gaslight you, And I think that, plus I actually started, when the movie Eat, Pray, Love came out, it kind of blew my mind. Like, I don't know if you ever watched the movie or read the book, but I like read the book and then I watched the movie. And that's when I really started really questioning, and just like letting myself be open.
Yeah.
And then also my mom, she had she's always been a couple steps ahead of me spiritually. So she had started reading some like new age stuff. And so she sent me, Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And that blew my mind.
Yep.
Yeah. So like stuff started happening to me that I couldn't explain, but I like couldn't deny.
Yeah.
And it was happening because of this book that I was reading, and, you know, and Eat, Pray, Love, and like, and just like exploring that. And I was just like, wait a second, maybe there's something outside of this bubble that I've been inside of.
Yes.
How about you? What started?
My deconstruction started probably 5 years ago. And my health was declining. I know I talked about it before, but had autoimmune disease, and I know that we talked about that too last episode. But that's when I started just researching about. Started with health, but then I learned more about spirituality and more about energy healing that was introduced to me. And the more I learned, the more I realized this did not align with what I had been taught and conditioned to believe my whole life.
So, like, which part didn't align? Like the energy stuff?
With the energy stuff and the amount of how we are not supposed to live in a state of fear, guilt, and shame. That was the biggest thing at the time for me. But, of course, the guilt came when I started questioning things. So I would just like push it down. And my son and I, we were teaching Sunday school together. He was 15 at the time. He's 18 now. And he gave me permission to talk about his story too. Because this can be very difficult to hear for some people. And honestly, I haven't had a discussion with many of my family members, you know, surprise. So
we're finding out now.
Yes.
As they watch.
So but he and I were teaching Sunday school together, younger kids, and he was so far advanced. Like, even before we started teaching Sunday school, he would go to the adult Sunday school class with us, my husband and I. And the child knew more about the Bible than I had ever met anybody to know. He studied it and studied it. And so I, of course, jumped in. I said, we're going to do this right. I'm going to devote my whole life to God. And I have to start by reading the Bible cover to cover because I need to know what I'm teaching and what I'm like subscribed to. And the more I read, and I had tried this several times, but it made me sick when I read it. And I would stop. And then I would just read the parts that felt good. And then we would do a family devotion every night. And we would go over the parts that felt good, the parts that love, basically.
Yeah.
And how we needed to repent and all the stuff. It was Numbers 31 that finally got me, because I had been doubting a lot. And not only did I have doubts, but also I noticed, and this is something that always bothered me, but I noticed how church members treated other members. The thing is, like, the sanctuary is supposed to be a holy, a sacred place. And, you know, kids could not run and you couldn't eat in there and they had all the rules. But, you know, somebody that's sitting over, like, one pew over from you and you just hugged them and, you know, called them brother or sister, and then you would walk around to somebody else and start talking about them and gossiping about them. Like, I could not reconcile that in my brain ever. Like, that always bothered me. So, and again, I think that comes from being in a low vibrational state, and religious keeps us in that low right?
Yeah.
So,
although I will say I have experienced that in spiritual circles as well.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, and I think that, it's everywhere. I don't, you know, like, I do think that, you know, like, whether it's a 12-step group or like a spiritual retreat I've gone on, or like church, like, it kind of feels like, to me, I've learned that it's just, it's people. You know what I mean?
It is.
And everybody's like on different, you know, like you said, different wavelengths. And it's just like, I've just learned to align with the people, you know, stay
And
with
that's
the
what we're
people that I
supposed to
align
do.
with.
That's good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And,
But to your point, I do think that, like you were saying, you know, possibly the fear and shame and guilt is going to keep, by and large, certain groups down here.
absolutely.
So
That's
I see
right.
what you're saying. Yeah.
And, so I was reading the Bible. I was having doubts about things, and even the sermons, of course, and the Sunday school lessons. I noticed how graphic, like we would ask the kids in our class to draw a picture of your favorite Bible story. And it was so violent because many of the stories in the Bible are very violent.
I know. Yeah. So my two sons like went to their grandparents, and they're very religious. And this was, you know, just a couple of years ago, and they came back and they were like traumatized, and I was like, "What's wrong?" They had watched a cartoon about David and Goliath where they actually showed him cut off Goliath's head, and they were
serious?
like up. I mean, it was a cartoon, but
I know.
like they were like having issues going to bed.
How is this okay?
I don't.
It's
Oh my
not
gosh.
okay, and that's what. But I was pretty well along in my like deconstruction journey. I still wasn't like quite there, but once I saw them drawing these pictures,
Yeah,
I was like, this can't be right. How this is not love. So anyway, I got to Numbers 31, which is not that far in the Bible, but it was the story of Moses commanded the soldiers to kill everybody in the village or the community wherever they were, and kill the men, the mothers, the boys, but keep the young virgins.
Oh God.
For the soldiers, like for yourselves, keep them. I couldn't get past it. Like I was up so many nights because of that story. I have 2 daughters. I could not imagine like that. That is just, I can't even comprehend it. So, that was pretty much, even though I kept reading and I kept studying, I never could get past that story. And there's several others, but still that was the most, that was the worst one for me. And then, but I waited. I did not want to, change my children's minds. I wanted them to find the truth on their own. I wanted them to have that freedom. And so my son, like I said, well, he was actually going to be a preacher, pastor. That was his plan. So we moved to a new school, like a new area, and then they went to a new school. He went in as a 15-year-old child and started a prayer group and a Bible study in that new school. Like that's hard for a 15-year-old boy to go in there and do, especially the new kid, right? And he did it confidently. I'm not saying that. I mean, and obviously it came with a lot of kids shaming him and picking on him and
Was it a
proclaim
religious
Christians.
school?
No, it was a public school.
It was a public school. Oh
Yes. So he was doing everything right as a young man in his teens. And he would have a bad thought or anything, and he would just like feel like he was like starting from ground zero, from scratch. He was unworthy. The shame was just horrible. I watched that child be in constant torment because he could never be good enough.
Yeah.
Now, and he and I both had jumped in head first to like religion and, like I said, devoted ourselves to God. And I would just continually remind him or tell him that he is doing everything right. I mean, like he is just as he should be on God's good list.
Yeah.
You know? And but he, that self-worth was not there, of course, because we were staying in a state of guilt and shame and fear.
Yeah.
And that also was confirmation for me to watch him do everything right And he was still in constant turmoil. He felt like God was not answering him. God was not talking, because he wasn't. But God would not answer his prayers. And I mean, he would, like, on his knees pray for hours. And he couldn't get answers. God had just left him. And Kirby, I was just like, that there is no way that a loving God would leave a child in this state when that child is trying to do everything for you. A God, right?
Yeah.
And so I could not make it all make sense in my mind anymore. I waited, and I just felt like it was going to come instinctively. My intuition, it was growing at the time, because I was more spiritual. I'd given up the religious part, and which we can get into that in a little while. But we were still going to church, still teaching Sunday school, and we never went against anything like the church beliefs. Instead of focusing on the other Bible stories, we focused on love, right? And Jesus teaches love. So, I mean, we kept it within the parameters of their beliefs, because I still respected the church rules, even though I did not agree with everything. So anyway, he came to the conclusion, the more he read, the more he studied, because he studied constantly, that this is not right. And it was so hard for him to give that up. I know.
I mean, for a 15-year-old to,
Yes.
you know, I think obviously, I'm sure he felt your support, because I think
Oh, yes.
without that, he probably, that would have felt so dangerous to come to that conclusion if you have two parents that are like, you know, stout believers.
Yes. And he was probably 16 by the time he came to like the final conclusion. And he told me, this was actually not long ago, that he would read the stories in the Bible, but he said, I would just skip over it. He's like, I knew it wasn't right, and it made me just feel sick, but I would skip over it because I didn't know what to do with that information, you know?
And this younger generation, I'm like so hopeful. 'Cause that's amazing. I really do think that is so amazing that he was in tune enough to be able to question it and check in with himself. Of like, okay, this is what like my church and my community is like telling me is right, and you know, and then for him to like stand in his own truth is astonishing. Yes,
it is. And I remember when he finally told me, I don't believe it anymore. Like, we can't do it. And I said, okay. So that is the moment that I had been waiting on. And he didn't know that. I did not communicate any of this because I did not want to skew their feelings. I just knew that I could not let them be in an environment like that alone without me. You know?
Well, here's what I find interesting. Maybe you didn't say anything, but I'm sure it sounds like your son's very sensitive to energy. And I'm sure he picked up that you also were sensing the same thing. I heard someone recently say, like, what if someone told us when we were little that the reason we feel differently around different people or places is because the energy is different and that's why. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice if we would have had that information first?
I know, instead of just being like, everybody's nice, everybody loves you, and you're like, that guy doesn't love me.
I don't know why my stomach hurts around this person.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I don't know why I like want to go hide in a corner right now when this person hugs me, but you know.
Yes.
Maybe we'd actually like listen to our own intuition.
Yes. You better believe my children know now.
Yeah, totally.
For sure. So then I had to have the conversation with my husband. And that's a tough conversation. For him and for me. To me, to communicate it. It was terrifying, to be really transparent. And it did not go well at first. Of course, and I wasn't expecting it to go well, because that is very surprising when you find out that your family has had a dramatic belief shift,
Yeah.
especially when my son and I, we were the ones reading the Bible or studying the Bible and doing
Oh, yeah.
devotions and had all Christian music, nothing secular. Like we dove like with everything we had. And in my opinion, it's not ironic that the two people that gave absolutely everything
Yeah, isn't that
are the two
interesting?
people that came to the conclusion
Yeah.
that there's something up with this.
Yeah, it was similar with my mom and I. Like, I would say that she and I were the most religious in our family. And now she and I are both don't go to church anymore.
Yeah.
And are way more like open and spiritual
Yes.
than, because it just felt, but to me, I think when I first started like deconstructing my faith, I like was ashamed of myself for like believing what I believed. But now I just see it as like, it was a stepping stone.
It was.
It was like I needed that like training and like structure to be able to go up the ladder, and or like ascend, essentially.
Yes.
In
Well, that is part of your
consciousness.
ascension story.
Yeah, totally.
I'm grateful for it. Absolutely.
Me too.
Because I wouldn't be where I am today.
Right. And I still think it colors the way I think about things. I wouldn't say it like I pray to Jesus from time to time, like I don't think it's like I've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. But for me, it just didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And but it's always been confusing to me because I'm just like, I don't understand how people just get stuck there, like what, but I do understand because like I see, the same in, I think like I was just doing a post today on how, when we grow, like we essentially, our group of friends gets smaller and smaller and smaller because most people don't go for it. Most people just stay where they are and they're just like satisfied with the status quo. And so, I guess it's like, I don't know. And maybe some people don't even like think there's another option,
I don't think that they do.
Yeah.
And also, if we're run by fear, that keeps us in a state, like a stagnant state anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. I was thinking about, like, how come I got out of it? Like, why am I, and even with sobriety, like, how did I get sober? But no, some other people don't find it, And I think the answer is that, like, I didn't have any other choice. Like, I don't think I can take credit for it. I just think, like, between the two options, like, spiritual death or this, you know what I mean? I was like,
See,
okay.
I don't know. I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Okay.
Because you absolutely need to take credit for it. Because that is your power. That is part of your ascension journey. You are above the fear, the guilt, the shame. Like, just your vibrational frequency has risen above that.
Yeah.
You
but
have
it's
the
like,
power inside of you.
I know, but in my brain, it didn't seem like an option. So maybe that's just because that's how I'm wired. You know what I mean?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
That is how you're wired. And in your brain, you didn't have an option because that's, where do you go? You go up, right?
Yeah. Like, what's the alternative?
Yes.
Stay here?
Yes.
Oh.
My brain is the same way, right? I can't just stay.
But I get
most people's
that
brain.
Yes.
They do have an option. They can just stay.
Yeah. And like, I think I told you about the book, The Great Divorce. Did we talk about this on the last episode?
No, but you told
we
me
didn't.
about it.
Okay. So like basically it's by C.S. Lewis, and I know I've already told you, but I'm going to tell you again. So basically it's a book about how there's a bus in hell and anyone can get on it at any point. Everybody's welcome to get on the bus, and the bus goes straight up to heaven. Okay. And then you're in heaven. You can get out and go into heaven. And then, but like most people will not get on the bus because they are too comfortable in their hell.
Yes.
And so they're too comfortable, and then even like the few people that get on the bus and they go up there, they don't get out of the bus because they're terrified. And I think it's like, like when the angels would come down to earth in the Bible, like people are like scared to death because it's like such an extreme amount of light and goodness that like our bodies don't know what to do with that frequency.
Yes.
And so it scares the crap out of them. And so I do think like to your point, And I even saw this, with my ex. It's like he would rather it's the devil versus the one you don't. I think
Yes.
I believe that we all go back to God. I think it doesn't matter, like, I believe in reincarnation, and I think like it doesn't matter how many lives it takes. We're all going to the same place. It's just, do you want to take the long route or the short
Right.
route, But we're all going back to the same place because God is too good and too magnetic, but he's going to respect, or she's going to respect, or it's going to respect your free will. But eventually your free will is going to take you back there.
So who or what do you think God is now?
I think God, like for me, is like the collective consciousness of everything that exists in the entirety.
Yes.
I think
agree.
of it as like God is the ocean and all us little tiny things running around, like we're the waves. And
we're part of the ocean.
Yeah, we're part of the ocean.
Come from that collective consciousness.
Yeah, we all come from that
Yes.
source.
Yes. Yes.
And we're just like little, like we're like, I've heard people say like God is like the sun and we're like little flames of the sun walking around.
Yes.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. Now, answer me this.
Ooh, I love this stuff.
Have you ever, this isn't a hard one or anything, but during your deconstruction,
Yeah.
have you had a hard time using the word God?
I haven't.
Because I have.
Have you?
Yes.
I haven't. I think, like, I didn't talk about this earlier, but like when I was a kid, I felt so alone that I would go to my room, and I remember after I like finally got my first Bible after Awana, and I would just read the Bible and I would pray, and I didn't know anything about God, like other than what like I learned, but like I didn't know anything about how to read the Bible, or like I just was like, I was lonely and I didn't have anyone, and so I always have felt God's presence in my life, and I've always had like a deep connection to that. I think because of how alone I felt as a kid. I think there was like initially I already had like I was an empath and sensitive. But I think I leaned on that. So that God was never the problem for me. It was people. People were the problem. I was like, what's wrong with all these people? Like they're not like God. I don't understand,
And I think, okay, so we had similar childhood, maybe not childhoods, but the feeling. Like I was pretty lonely as a child. I had a brother that passed away, and my mom she did have health issues. And so it was just, I grew up an only child. A lot of alone time. Very shy, very sensitive. And so, like you, I did find comfort in that loving God that we learned about. However, I also had this picture of God, and this is how he is written or was in my mind from the Bible and from preaching and hearing and being taught, that he was a man on a throne. And so when I think of God, and this has been a healing process for me too. So I'm getting to where I can use the word God, but I, in my opinion, I don't think God is a deity outside of me. God is within all of us, and we all come from that collective consciousness. So we're all part of God. God is inside of us, right? And so, or in my opinion, or the way I see it now. And so when I hear the word God, I still, in a way, think of this man on a throne that is in heaven with Jesus on his right side, ready to strike if you do something wrong or send you to hell.
I see.
Right?
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So it was a man on a throne, not just everything that is around us and everything makes up God, basically.
Yeah, the way I explain it in my like post, just kind of if I'm talking to people that maybe aren't believers or aren't open to, or like atheists or whatever, is that like because I do think it's essential to have faith in something bigger than yourself that is in control. Like that's like taking care of you essentially, like something that you can trust that's outside of yourself. Because I think like if we don't have that, then we are just in fear and shame. Like at least for me, like if I think it's all up to me, I'm going to be in fear and shame.
Yeah.
No problem. All the time.
And I can see that. Right. I see it a little bit differently, but I do see that.
Okay. Yeah. And so, you know, the way I describe it is it's like, okay, like whether you believe in God or not, it's the thing that grows your fingernails. It's the thing that makes your heart beat. It's the thing that makes, you know, plants shoot out of the ground. Like whatever that thing is, it's the thing that, you know, creates gravity. Like whatever that is, there you go.
Right. Yes.
I don't know what that is. You don't know what that is. We don't know what that is, but it's something, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
And so like, that's kind of how, like, I think as I've, you know, deconstructed my faith and then like started to reconstruct it, like the more I like think about it, the more I just don't know.
Yeah.
And I become okay with not
it's okay.
knowing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's okay. So when you were in religion or Christian, I don't know if you saw this like I did, but now I've noticed many people see it this way. There's either Christian or atheist. There's no in between. Have you ever felt like, I know that I thought when I was a Christian, I thought it was either Christian or atheist.
I mean, I guess, what did we call people that were like exploring Christian or like
agnostic?
Well, there was like a word I feel like we used, that people were like thinking about becoming a believer. Like there was like hope in, I forget what the word was. What is it? I'm not gonna think about it. Maybe it'll come to me later. But that was kind of like the only in between. It was like either you're non-Christian.
Yeah. Or you're Christian.
Or you're Christian. And by Christian, I mean Christian like me, not like any other.
Well, you're going to go to heaven and not hell.
Yeah, there you go.
You're either going to go to heaven or you're going to go to hell, and that was it. There was nothing else. But that is not the case at all.
Oh my gosh. And, since I've come out of the Christian faith and also since I've started to heal from codependency.
Yes.
It is so not surprising to me at all that like I really see like certain not all Christianity, but like the vein that I was in, the like evangelical, non-denominational, was so codependent. You have to believe what I believe.
Yeah.
You have to believe what I believe, otherwise you're going to hell. Otherwise, nope, that's
Period.
that. And also I'm bad. I'm not a good person. I'm not a good Christian if I don't try to make you believe what I believe. Oh my God.
I know.
Like I remember in college, because my dad was like was not open at all.
Yeah.
He was like, I was Catholic. I'm not Catholic anymore, or whatever. It's so funny. Like now my dad and I, like we have conversations about faith and God, and we're so much more like aligned now. But back then, like I was so terrified that my dad was going to go to hell. And so it like kept me up at night. And I remember trying to have conversations with him and it was like, didn't go anywhere. And then I felt like I was bad because I couldn't get my dad to become a Christian. That's so much weight. It's so much weight.
That is so much weight. Yes. And that, in the Bible, it says that God is not a God of confusion, right? Which that in itself, right?
Oh my gosh.
If you ask, and this is not me pointing fingers or anything. I think it is disheartening to think of this. But if you ask 20 different Christians the same question, you're going to get 20 different answers.
Oh yeah.
How is that?
Isn't that so funny though? Because like I remember even in the church or the churches I was going to, we all believe the same thing. We all believe the same thing. And we're so comfortable because we're all in the same group. And it's like, no, we don't. We don't all believe the same thing. Like we believe vastly different things. We all know the right answer.
Yes.
Like, and that's when I think, I remember actually it was when I was in college, I was in a Bible study and I started to see that like, I knew the right answer and everybody else knew the right answer and everybody just like regurgitated. And that's when I started asking, like, I remember I freaked out. This poor, sweet family that like hosted our college Bible study. Because I just was like, what if I just start asking questions? And they were like, because even just the act of asking questions is like,
don't do it.
Oh my God, she's died. You know what I mean? Like even just, and I remember I was a big fan of John Ortberg. Do you know John Ortberg? He was a pastor. He was actually a pastor at Willow Creek, the church I grew up going to. And then he moved out to San Francisco. But he wrote a book on like how it's good to doubt. It's good to doubt because it strengthens your faith. But like that, I was just like, when that book came out, I was like, wait a second. You know, I like, because that's the opposite of what I experienced, you know, and I'm sure when that came out, it was kind of edgy.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
for sure.
Sold some books, you know, but, and also I don't know. I think he might have, I don't know if he's still Christian or not. I know he's not a pastor anymore.
Right.
But interesting.
Well, even Jesus says to basically, these are my words, not Jesus's, but do not follow blindly, right? We're supposed to. Now, if I had to guess, it was because he wanted people to see the truth and how, like, everything is, the kingdom of God is within us. And so how everything is within us and how powerful we are and how we are connected to the divine in here. Yeah. And so like it's direct, like, you know, we're connected directly. We don't need a middleman or anything like that. And we're connected inside. But and I really believe that was what he was trying to point the people to, right?
Yeah. Well, I always took great issue with the fact that, like, I don't think Christ ever said, worship me.
He didn't.
I'm like, okay, why are we all worshiping him if he said, follow me? You know, because, like, I do kind of believe, like, and I remember when I was kind of having some, like, trippy experiences after I read The Power of Now and I started doing meditation and it just kind of like these, like, weird mystical experiences. And, like, I just, like, had these thoughts of, like, wait a second, like, you know, is, like, Jesus was the person, but Christ is the consciousness in all of us. And so, like, we're the collective body of Christ. And it says that in the Bible, you know? But, like, it kind of started to make more sense to me. And I kind of was like, okay, well, if that's true, then that means, and even Christ says this, like, you will all do these things and more than
greater than me.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
He flat out says it, and they left it in there, you know, but we've always been taught that, like, God stopped talking after the Bible was written.
Bible,
He stopped. And you know, and worship
how does
Jesus.
That even
I know.
Makes sense. But you're right. We were taught that.
Yeah. Which I also was like,
that doesn't sound right. That just does not resonate at all.
It doesn't. Because it's like, okay, well, then why are we praying? Why are we trying to communicate with God?
That's another thing. Prayer.
Yeah.
So what exactly is prayer in a Christian sense or religious sense? Because if God is all-knowing, he already knows, and his will be done, then I'm confused.
Oh, yeah. Like
what
what's the
are
point
we
of
praying for?
I feel like I asked that question too, and I think I was met with, like, because it's not about God, it's about you. It's about.
But if he already has the answers and knows exactly what's going to happen, I'm going to be selfish if I ask for what I want and not his will. But if I ask him for his will to be done and it's going to be done anyway, I never could reconcile that either, and I didn't know how to pray.
Oh man, when I got into recovery and, like, I was so tapped out on prayer. My brain was so tired of trying to think of prayers or things to say to God. That, like, they recommended that I memorize some prayers. And that, like, opened me up, because, like, really what I've, you know, I think, you know, there was so much, like, Catholic hating when I was in, like, church. And now I, like, see, like, praying the rosary. So it's like, do you know how that works? I don't know exactly how that works, but there's like the rosary. And so for every bead, you say so many prayers and you go around the whole thing. So if somebody prays the rosary for you, like that is intense. It takes a really long time. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like when I started to like study like meditation and the power of now and like being able to get a brief like gap in your thoughts, like the fear, ego in your brain. I was like, oh, the rosary and like memorized prayers are opening space in your brain to give you a break from the mental chatter. Because like that is like the ego in our brain, you know, keeping us scared and like full of fear and guilt and shame and acting out of that. And so if we get a break from that, like we're less likely to act from there and stay in that, like it like raises our vibration. And I was like, interesting. Like, and it's just like, I'm seeing like how like this stuff is kind of like baked in, and not to say, like I said, again, like there's still some stuff in Christianity that I think is wonderful, you know?
Yeah.
But, and I remember like getting to these points where I felt really connected to God, but I had no idea how that happened. I had no clue. And then it wasn't until I found recovery and I was like given kind of like a roadmap to like how you do that. And I was like, oh, there's like a way to do this. Who knew? And like, you know, with the 12 steps, like since I've learned about those, I'm starting to see the 12 steps in like all these different religions that I read about.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like they just took all the stuff that worked for spiritual awakening from all these different religions. They boiled it down and they made it simple.
I've heard that about the 12 step.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's really fascinating.
I can remember at a very, very trying time in my life and our marriage where I was and trying to do all the right things in religion. I would pray and I would pray and I would beg. And now I know what the law of attraction is and all this stuff and how this like energy works.
Yeah.
But I would beg and cry. I'm talking, it felt like it was forever. And never get an answer. Nothing changed. And I could not understand. Again, watching my son go through the same thing after the fact because I understood it already. But I could not figure out how God could just let that be. And I think that people are doing that today.
Yeah.
And just waiting on him to answer.
Well, I also, like, you were talking about the law of attraction. Like, like I used to worry in prayer. Like, that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
I'm focusing on the problem. I'm focusing on the worst outcome.
And begging is coming from a place of lack.
Yeah, exactly. And like, now I know.
Yeah.
That worrying is just praying exactly for the outcome that you don't want.
Exactly. Yes. And that's what I was doing now.
Yeah,
I see it.
Yeah, right?
I know exactly why nothing changed.
But so many people don't know that. And they're just stuck there, you know? Whereas like now, I think I was telling you the other day that like, oh, like I was, you know, we're moving and I'm, you had to register my son for this new school district, and they like they are very staunch about who gets to be in the school district because it's like a good school district. And so they wanted like 4 forms of residency. And not only that, but I had to show payment. So if it was like auto insurance or like renters, whatever, I had to show payment for everything. And like I literally had this lease for like maybe 10 days.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have any of that. I'm like selling a house and moving, whatever. And I just was like, oh my gosh, there's like so much on my plate right now. And this seems impossible. But I have learned that the more I worry about it, the worse it gets. The more I get in there and I try to do all that, the worse it actually gets because I'm focusing on the problem. Yes. Whereas I stopped myself. I was like, you know what? I'm going to focus on selling this house. I'm going to focus on purging this house. And you know what? It's going to get done and I'm not going to worry about it.
And you knew it was going to work out no matter what.
And it did. And like, I even didn't have all the forms, but I was like, you know, I'm just going to send what I have. And I'm not even going to say that. I'm not even going to acknowledge that I don't have the right ones. And she was like, great. That's great. He's registered.
Exactly.
But
and that's how easy it is.
Yeah.
That's how easy life can be. I know. We're told to constantly worry.
Yeah.
Which again, Jesus says, God does not give us a spirit of fear or worry. And we do the opposite.
Well, I also think
I never
that he
understood
says, like,
that either.
My yoke is easy and my burden is light. And that,
Yes.
like, the lilies of the field, and like what's the other part to that? The lilies of the field and something about birds. I don't know.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um,
The birds will get what they need.
yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
think about that, and like my life was so drastically different from that. And now it's starting to look more like that, where I've learned that, I'm starting to look at myself as like a baby in a crib. Like a baby in a crib is playing with its toys. It's not worrying about where its next meal is coming from. It's not worrying about like if there's going to be a roof over its head. It's just playing with the toys in front of it. And I think for me, the toys in front of me are the things I have to do for this 24 hours, and that's it. And then the rest of it is God's business.
Yes.
And God is the parent in charge, and I'm the baby in the crib.
Mm-hmm.
But like I think we get loaded down, and like I said, I think it's on purpose because we're
It is
easier to control.
because we can be controlled. That's right.
Yeah.
If we're in a state of fear, shame, guilt, all this stuff. You're right.
Well, and also like the map of consciousness you were talking about before. Like I just recently learned that like authenticity is higher than love.
It is. Yeah.
And I was like, that blew my
Yes.
mind, because I'm just like, you think that Americans would love that. You think that we'd be all about being our most authentic selves, our most individual selves. But like, we're not. Like most of us are suppressing everything to fit in and be
Yes.
like everybody else.
Yes.
And somehow, like, that you think that would help? You think that would help the world run more smoothly
I
if we
know.
were all the same? But
Oh,
it doesn't.
yeah. No. No. And we are all here for a reason. We have
Yeah.
a purpose. But people are terrified to be their authentic self. Terrified.
I mean, like, rightly so. Like, I don't know if
I know.
you had
People
to.
are mean.
Yeah, well, it's like, I mean, just put a video on YouTube and you'll find out. Like,
That's all you have
man.
to do.
Oh, this is going to be on YouTube.
YouTube critics.
Like, yikes. I'm
It's
sure there's going to
fun.
be a few comments on this one,
Yeah.
But yeah, like, in going through the process of like getting ready to put myself online and be
Yeah.
seen by people and use
Yeah.
my own voice. Like for me growing up, I like wanted to be seen. I wanted to be seen and heard, but it didn't feel safe. And so what I
Yeah.
did, I became an actor. So like I could perform other people's words. I could be other people. But when it came to me, like I was
Couldn't do it.
class president one year in high school, and like I had to give a speech, and I was like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And my sister wrote it for me. And only then could I do it, because I was so scared, because I learned
Yes.
in my childhood to speak up is to get in trouble.
That's right. It
And it's
wasn't
the same
a
in
safe
church.
place.
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah.
I mean, at least
We're
the church that I was in.
discouraged to ask questions
Yeah.
and never question God. Who are you to question God?
Yes. Oh, yeah. That.
And I wonder if we get that answer because they actually don't have the answers and
Yeah,
they
I bet
haven't
that's
been able
part
to
of it.
reconcile it in their minds either.
Yeah. It's funny. Like I used to think my ex like was just gaslighting me all the time when I would ask him certain things, and he'd pretend like he'd know the answer.
Yeah.
And then I realized it was some of the time that he was gaslighting me, but like the other times, I think that especially men in our culture
Yeah.
are shamed for not knowing things.
Because
And
they
so-
are shamed
They are.
when they're being raised.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like that's, the main tool. Like the patriarchy isn't
Yeah.
good for men or women. It's not good
No.
for either of us. Like I think first it teaches men to completely cut themselves off from their emotions
Yep.
and any of their feminine. Like think about like when men are growing up, they're like, oh, you're such a girl, you throw like a
Yep.
girl, whatever.
You're a
Like
sissy.
you better not be like a woman. If there's any bit of you that's like a woman, that's bad.
Yeah.
And then like when we get into relationships with them, they try to do the same thing they did, like culture did to
Yes.
them. They try to do to women, because we somehow were able to hang on to our emotional connection.
Yeah.
I really don't know how. It's kind of
don't either.
amazing. I mean, I think outside of like, it's kind of built in to our bodies. Like I remember learning about like initiation practices, in different tribes, like the men have to be initiated because there's nothing like women get a period and we start having a monthly cycle.
Yep.
And so it's like built into our bodies, but like men don't have that. So they have to have that initiation. And so like, I don't know, maybe that's the only reason we were able to hang on to it. But I mean, for me, by a thread.
Yes. Well, because a lot of us are performing in our masculine energy.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're having to take control and make decisions and do all the stuff. And so that does deter us from being able to be completely in our feminine energy. And I know that I'm just now getting comfortable with my feminine energy. And I'm still uncomfortable to a certain point.
Yeah. And I think to be able to be fully in your feminine, you have to be safe.
You do.
And
You
you have to be protected and safe.
You do.
And so, like, for me as a single parent,
it's you.
Like, it's me. So it's like, I'm working on feeling safe by setting myself up well in terms of like, getting out of debt and having investments and, and like earning potential. But yeah, it would be wonderful to be in a relationship with a man that like totally helped me feel safe and protected. But the relationships I've had with men did the exact opposite of that. Because I mean, like, these men probably don't feel safe to feel. They don't feel safe.
No, they don't. Not at all.
To be their authentic selves. Absolutely not. Because I think we have masculine and feminine, like, we all have a balance of that.
Yes, absolutely.
And so
because there has to be that balance, or there has to be. For things to run smoothly, there's supposed to be that balance.
Yeah.
So you're right. We do both have it. And men, they are dominated when they're being raised. And so they dominate.
Yeah.
And intimidate when they're in relationships, many of them.
But that's like what happened to them growing up.
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
And so that's all they know. And the fact that it happened to them is not their fault.
Yeah.
But we also have to take radical acceptance of where we are.
Yeah.
And choose to heal and change it.
Yeah, for sure. I was watching Elizabeth Gilbert, the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. I was watching her give a speech, and she was talking about how basically like Buddha and Christ and like, like Sri Krishna, like they all came to teach men how to be more like God. Because guess what? Women already can do it.
Yeah.
Like when you think about like what they're teaching, because I really do think like when it comes to spirituality.
How interesting is that?
I know. I was like very surprised by this, but like think about it. Like the women don't have trouble showing up for Jesus. Remember when the disciples like no showed basically, but all the women were there. It was at the tomb. Yeah. So they were still there. They were still like they were devoted and like the disciples weren't. And so she was just talking about how like, yeah, they came to teach men this because women already got it. So basically what I've heard is that men come to know God and get freedom from self by learning selflessness. However, women get into their divine feminine by leaning into focusing on themselves.
Yes.
So it's like the yin and the yang, you know what I mean? Yep. Like men have to learn to be more outside of themselves and we have to learn to be more inside of ourselves.
That's interesting.
Which I've
definitely...
it makes sense. Yes. Yeah, because I'm like, think about it. Like I was turned inside out most of my life. I was overgiving, oversharing for like, most of my life in all of my relationships.
Yep.
And it, since I started doing the healing, then I'm like, oh, you can't pour from an empty cup. No. I need to focus on myself, And so the more I've done that, the more healing and actually the better I'm showing up in my relationships.
Yes. And women, or not women, but the feminine energy is the receiver.
Right.
The masculine is the giver and the doer. But that makes so much sense. And I do believe that Jesus and Buddha, and there's a few others. But anyway, I believe that they were ascended masters.
Yeah.
And they did come to Earth to do exactly what you just explained, and that makes sense. I've never heard it from that perspective.
I know, I hadn't either. I love
but
Elizabeth
it makes
Gilbert.
Sense. Yes.
She's good stuff, yeah.
And they came to show people love and and the mystical side of things.
Yeah, because I really do think Christ was saying, like you were saying before, that like we all have God inside of us. We're all capable of great things. Yeah,
that's right. And we can perform the things that they all performed as well. And think about this. This is kind of off subject, but we only use, 10% of our brains? I think we've talked about this before. What about the other part of our brains that we have not tapped into?
Oh, yeah. What if it's like supernatural, awesome psychic gifts?
And that is like, I believe that Jesus had tapped into most of his brain, right?
Yeah.
We all have the ability. And I'm not comparing like anybody to Jesus. That's not what I'm saying at all. But he did say that we would do greater things than him.
Yeah.
In my opinion, this is what he was talking about.
Well, I even think about Moses parting the Red Sea.
Yes.
I mean, that was pretty great. You know what I mean? Like, that was some pretty walking on water stuff, if you ask me. He was right up there with that. Yeah. I watched a really cool documentary about, there's this, so I forget what happened, but basically when there's a tsunami somewhere else, it like, the way it works is that like, it causes like, very similar things to the plagues that happened, because the water will recede. If there's a tsunami somewhere else, there's a water will recede. There was something about basically the red tide, the blood in the water, but like kind of like this happened when I was visiting my mom in Florida. It's called red tide, and it's like it like hits you. Have you ever been around it? So it's like, I don't know if it's like a gas or something, but it's basically like when all these fish die, it smells really bad. It actually hurts your eyes. But it was something similar to that where but it just hovered around the ground. Okay. And in, Egyptian families, the firstborns slept downstairs and the rest of the family slept upstairs. So they were talking about that's how the firstborns of every family would have died. It was fascinating. It was such a good documentary. And I was like, because when I think about how God works, there are laws of physics in this world. And so of course, why wouldn't he work through the laws of physics? And, and you know what I mean? That makes so much sense to me that, I do think maybe the timing of it all, that is amazing, if that was all lined up, but the reasons it happened, there are all these natural explanations for it.
Yes,
it was a really cool documentary.
I think that there are natural explanations for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
but that's fascinating.
I know, it was really cool. I think it was a History Channel documentary. It was really good. I love that stuff.
That's another story that doesn't sit with me well, because in that story it says that God hardened Pharaoh's heart.
Oh, yeah.
And so Pharaoh was about to let the people go, and then God hardened his heart so he could perform more wonders. And then he, according to the story, he did all the plagues and he killed Pharaoh's firstborn son. So God is the reason that Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he went ahead and killed his son.
Yeah, it's kind of messed up. Have you ever thought about the fact that God created evil?
Oh yeah.
This is something I've been thinking about. It's I mean, it's going to sound callous, but I do think if we look at death through the lens of reincarnation and that our soul, is eternal, then I do think that maybe death is not as bad to God as it is to us, right? But when I was...
Well, we actually don't die because energy doesn't die, right? Just our outer shell. But go ahead.
We change form, essentially. I think that's matter never dies, it only changes form.
Yes.
And so like part of it, it's like when people are like, oh, how can you believe in a loving God if evil exists? And I was like, well, I was just recently reading the autobiography of a yogi, and he's talking, it's the guy that brought yoga to the West. And he was talking about how basically he was talking about like Einstein and the theory of relativity, and how essentially like we don't know what light is, but we know that everything comes from light.
Right.
I don't know if they've since found out what light is. I think they still don't know, but they know somehow through some mathematical equation that everything comes from light.
Yeah.
And for there to be matter, essentially everything, like when you think about a canvas, so like God's the blank canvas, right? For there to be matter, you're going to have to paint on the canvas, and that paint is essentially shadow. And so like for the world to exist, there's going to have to be darkness.
Right.
So it's just like, it's like the price of admission that like God, of course, is like, no, he's all loving and full of light, and it is light. But in order for, and this is the way I think of it, like God to experience themselves, there has to be darkness. There has to be duality, at least in this plane.
Yes. No, I agree with that part too. There does have to be duality.
Yeah.
And for there to be good, there has to be bad.
Right.
But I guess I don't subscribe to, say, the God of the Bible. For him to be all loving, the evil things that he supposedly did.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I don't believe in that God. Right?
Yeah, that feels patriarchal.
Yeah, it exactly, right.
Yeah.
And so I do agree with you that there has to be duality.
Yeah, well, and I think like but like big but is that like God is loving. And that's the main thing.
Well, God is love.
Yeah,
and
God is love.
Everything. Yeah.
Right. But and then also this is the other thing that like drove me nuts about Christianity. I remember having this conversation with my friend where I had started like deconstructing, okay? And I remember she like came to visit me, and we were talking about like how I believe that like the world is getting better as we go forward in time. It's just progressing. It's always progressing. Yeah. We're always getting kinder, and and like things are getting like, when I think about like today, we live better than kings lived 300 years ago. Like the average person lives better than that. And so I'm like, of course, like to me in my brain, the new earth, like heaven on earth, happens through us.
Yes.
Through us making it a better place, Yes. And she was like, no, it's getting worse. It's getting worse. And like, and then the part about not caring about the planet. And I'm just like, how is that good stewardship? We're supposed to be like good stewards of like the things that God entrusts us with. And like, how is that good stewardship if we're just like totally exhausting all the resources and like ruining the planet, and we don't care? And we're only focused about after we die? It didn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense. Thank you so much for joining us for part 1 of my conversation with Kirby about our deconstruction stories. We opened up about where we came from and what it looked like to start questioning, but there's so much more to share. So in part 2, we'll dive deep into the challenges, the healing process, and what life looks like on the other side of deconstruction. Make sure you're subscribed so the next episode shows up for you automatically. And if this conversation spoke with you, take a moment to share it with a friend, leave a review, or post it in your social media. Every share helps us spread these conversations further. I'll see you in part 2.